Welcome to LFC Transfer Hub. Newcastle confirm Alexander Isak decision as drastic update emerges amid Liverpool interest. Newcastle United have confirmed that Alexander Isak has got a shirt number for the 2025-26 season, despite the striker's desire to leave the club and make the switch to Liverpool. Isak, 25, is adamant he will never represent Newcastle again, while he's reported to be furious over a broken contract promise that led him to decide that last season would be his final one at St. James Park. Even if Newcastle refused to cash in and he remains at St. James Park when the transfer window closes, the striker believes that his career on Tyneside is finished and he does not want to be reintegrated into the squad. Despite this, Eddie Howe's side have still assigned Isak a shirt number ahead of their Premier League curtain raiser versus Aston Villa on Saturday afternoon. In a club statement, the Magpies confirmed that Isak has kept the number 14 shirt. Isak has donned that number ever since his £63 million move from Real Sociedad, and he will wear that again this season, should he remain at Newcastle and make a U-turn on his stance that he will never play for the club again. Callum Wilson's departure earlier this summer left the number 9 shirt free, but Isak has still kept number 14. Former Newcastle director and minority co-owner Amanda Staveley had promised Isak that he and the would sit down to discuss a new contract, which would have been deserved for his performances. But Staveley, who left the Magpies in July 2024, departed before both parties could negotiate fresh terms. Paul Mitchell came in as Newcastle's sporting director and changed tune on that promise, which frustrated Isak. Ex-Tottenham and Monaco chief Mitchell cited the club's need to comply with profit and sustainability rules, PSR. But in October last year, Anthony Gordon signed a new long-term contract. Isak has 3 years left on his contract at the Magpies, and extending his stay there was not seen as a matter of urgency. But it was then made clear that the 2024-25 season would be his final one on Tyneside. Some at Newcastle deny that Isak's wish was expressed and that the striker had planned to discuss the situation and a potential new contract with club bosses following the conclusion of last season. Newcastle face Aston Villa in their Premier League curtain raiser on Saturday, and Howe has made it evident that he cannot pick Isak, as things stand, for his squad's impending trip to the West Midlands. For me, I'm trying to manage the situation and manage the team and to, most importantly, manage the group of players that I'm working with day to day, that I love coaching and helping, Howe said. We're focusing on Aston Villa. Everything else, to a degree, from my perspective, is not in my control, so it's not my focus. When asked about whether he believed he could convince Isak to stay, Howe said, "If it was that easy, I'd have done it yesterday." Paul Merson makes Alexander Isak to Liverpool transfer claims after drastic new twists. Another day, another twist in the Alexander Isak to Liverpool transfer saga. Not only has the Wanaway striker reportedly told Newcastle United he will never play for them again, but the home he was living in the northeast, is said to have been put on the rental market. Isak, it is abundantly clear, wants Liverpool. But whether his dream becomes a reality in the final 3 weeks of the transfer window remains another thing entirely. What we do know is that the Reds bid £110 million for his services. However, they saw that bid rejected, with the Magpies said to be holding out for a mind-boggling £150 million, and they have no plans to make a second offer. But that doesn't mean Liverpool have ended their interest. Instead, they are keeping a watchful eye on developments at Newcastle, whose attempts to bolster their forward line, let alone replace their 27-goal top scorer from last season, have so far hit a brick wall. With the Magpies also keen to avoid seeing Isak line up for the Premier League champions when they head to St. James Park on Monday, August 25th, it would appear this transfer saga will drag on until the last week of the window. Paul Merson, however, believes the Reds will not increase their original £110 million proposal after the striker's latest actions. Newcastle rejected an opening offer of £110 million plus add-ons, but now, after what Isak has said and done, Liverpool are not going to offer any more, wrote the Arsenal legend for Sky Sports. Why would they? They know the situation and know Newcastle don't want an unhappy player. The timing from Isak is interesting. Maybe he thought a deal over £110 million would be enough. Newcastle held firm, but now he obviously just wants to get away from St. James Park. His hand has now been forced, and that's why he is saying he won't play again for Newcastle. He potentially thought the initial offer would get accepted and he wouldn't have to do anything. He thought he'd be leaving a hero, but now that has gone. Liverpool are many pundits' favourites to reclaim the Premier League title they won at a canter last season, with some even believing the arrival of Isak would make it a formality. But Merson, who pipped the Reds to 2 First Division championships during his playing career at Arsenal, does not agree with that, and he believes Arne Slot's side, who lost the Community Shield to Crystal Palace on Sunday, have a bigger transfer priority. The former England international said, "If I was Liverpool, I'd be looking more for a centre-back than Isak. Arne Slot has enough options going forward without needing Isak." Hugo Ekitike looked very good against Crystal Palace. They desperately need another defender. I hear a lot of people saying that if Liverpool get Isak, it's game over in the Premier League. It's finished. I don't see that at all. Causes more problems, if anything. Where does Cody Gakpo play? There's Florian Wirtz, Mo Salah, and then Ekitike. If Isak arrives, they can't all play. Slot will have to mix things up and change things constantly to keep everyone happy, and that causes problems. The Reds kick off their Premier League campaign at home to Bournemouth on Friday, August 15th, before travelling to Newcastle, August 25th, and then hosting last season's runners-up Arsenal, August 31st. The transfer window closes at 7 p.m. on Monday, September 1st. Alan Shearer makes angry Alexander Isak point as he slams Newcastle transfer window. Alan Shearer insists he is not angry at Alexander Isak for wanting to join Liverpool as he hit out at Newcastle United's disastrous transfer window. Alan Shearer has admitted he is not angry at Alexander Isak for wanting to leave Newcastle United. But he insists Liverpool do not stand a chance of signing the wanaway striker for £110 million as he bemoaned his former club's nightmare pre-season and disastrous transfer window. Isak scored the winning goal against the Reds last season to help Newcastle win the League Cup for the club's first major trophy since 1955, before helping them qualify for the Champions League. However, that has not stopped the Swede from wanting to leave St. James' Park, with Liverpool his destination of choice. The 25-year-old is currently training on his own after sitting out Newcastle's entire pre-season schedule, and is reportedly adamant that he will not play for the club again. Magpies legend Shearer is pained by the ongoing saga at his boyhood club and wants to see Newcastle sign 2 new strikers before even contemplating selling Isak. "So far, Newcastle's pre-season has been a nightmare," he said. "There is no other way of describing it. They have had a disastrous transfer window, missing out on every one of their top targets they went for, and on top of that they have got Alexander Isak's situation hanging over them as they get ready for the opening weekend. One way or another they have to resolve it, but that won't be easy. Isak clearly wants to leave St. James' Park and join Liverpool, but he cannot be sold if they don't get anyone in to replace him. It's not just one new striker Newcastle need, either. Callum Wilson moved on earlier in the summer, so the reality is that if they don't get 2 centre-forwards in, Isak does not go anywhere. That is still a possible scenario, and if he is still at Newcastle when the window closes at the start of September, things get interesting because he will want to play. He could be playing for his World Cup place with Sweden at next summer's finals. There are a lot of ifs, buts, and maybe surrounding Isak at the moment, but over the next 2 or 3 weeks we will find out a lot more about how things could pan out. Shearer, writing in his BBC Sport column, continued, "There are 2 sides to every story, and we haven't heard from Isak yet, or anyone inside his camp, other than him saying he wants to explore his options. We don't know when he told the club that, how he told them, or what his feelings are about exactly why he wants out. What we do know is that Liverpool have offered £110 million for him. In recent years we have seen Enzo Fernandez, Declan Rice and Jack Grealish go for around £100 million, so if that is the bar, they are never going to get Isak, a 25-year-old striker who has scored 44 Premier League goals across the past 2 seasons, for £110 million. I don't think you'd get Dan Burn for that, to be honest. Newcastle have named their price, which is nearer to £150 million, so we will have to see what Liverpool do next." And Shearer continued, "I am not angry about the way Isak has behaved, because I know how football works. I'm disappointed and surprised that this is happening now, but I have been in the game long enough to understand why we have got to this point. It seems obvious that Liverpool have got into him or his agent to turn his head and make him want to go there. From a player's perspective, rather than a fan, I get the mentality where he has made his mind up about what is best for his future too. Thanks for watching. Like and comment and subscribe.